Welcome back to Your Magical Midlife, the no BS podcast for unconventional women ready to ditch the shoulds and claim their wild and wise selves. I'm Kate Higgins, your host. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and coach with 25 years of walking women through the chaos, blending my clinical grit with spiritual fire. As women, we walk through 4 distinct portals in our lifetime: the Maiden, the Mother, the Empress, and the Crone. Each one brings us wounds to heal and gifts to unpack. This podcast explores all the midlife themes: change, the change, caring for aging parents, unpacking the grief of aging, our shifting identity, and aging with agency, joy, and rebellion. I'm here to help you heal the wounds, flip the scripts, and step into your life that's been waiting for you. Let's get real, raw, gritty, and unleash some magic. This week's episode is a little bit different. I am sharing a story that I wrote and will be performing at Quest Santa Fe. It's a little bit vulnerable. I feel a little funny putting it in the world. I don't want to be someone who complains or is stuck in their trauma or in their past. But I think it's important to talk about the relationship between mothers and daughters and how expectations can be really complicated. I hope that you get something from it, and I hope that it will inspire you to reflect a little bit on your own experience with your mother's expectations of you versus how your life turned out. This is for all the women who've lived outside the box. I'm a chronic late bloomer, forever late to the party. Here I am, 55 years old, unmarried, no children, moved in with a partner for the first time at 48, bought a home at 49, started my business at 53. I could never grasp the rules of the game that everybody else seemed to understand. Go to college and get a degree, marry a respectable man and have children, be understated, deferential, and polite, become a nurse or a teacher. These are the things my mother wanted for me. She wanted me to have a life that everybody understood. A life that did not need to be explained. I, however, wanted to be Barbara Eden in I Dream of Jeannie. I wanted to live in a sparkling bottle filled with pink cushions. I wanted out of suburbia. I wanted to be free from her expectations. I wanted glamour and magic, and most of all, my freedom. My understated preppy mother suffered silently through my goth phase, and then my purple phase, and finally my pink phase. The day she died, my dad awkwardly pressed her wedding band and engagement ring into my palm. Here, he said, she wanted you to have them. They felt like a loaded gun, still warm from her hand. I stood there holding those rings, hit with the weirdest cocktail of feelings. Grief for my mother, sharp and immediate. Heavy sadness that she had stayed trapped in that miserable marriage for decades. And then came the anxiety. I felt like I had been handed a cursed object. And underneath all of that was shame. I felt like I was getting a pity spinster ring, a consolation prize for the daughter who never managed to get a ring of her own. I never fantasized about being anybody's wife. I never played bride or house. That kind of future, marriage, children, convention, it felt like a trap. There is a man I love. I met him in 1994 in a nightclub. We had a passionate on-again, off-again affair fraught with big feelings and bigger blow-ups. I thought occasionally about marrying him, but it was complicated, and the timing was never right. He was wild and handsome and terribly exciting. I never knew how to ask him for anything more normal. We live together now. He's mellowed from rock star to a man who tinkers in the garage and feeds the birds. Our unconventional arrangement works for us. He makes me feel safe, but never trapped. He nurtures me in ways I didn't even know I needed. I grew up in an unhappy home with a lot of fighting. My mother avoided socializing with the neighbors. She knew the whole block could hear him screaming at us, and her shame became isolation. As her world shrank, I became her confidant. We'd sit on the back stairs as she smoked. She'd tell me to make sure I always had FU money, to make sure I could leave if the fireman she wanted me to marry ever became physically abusive. My father, she insisted, never crossed that line. She started drinking during the day just to get some peace. By the time I was 12, I was anxiously monitoring the liquor cabinet. By the time I was 15, we were locked in a battle. The more she drank, the less I ate. The thinner I got, the angrier she became. My dad had a difficult childhood and never got past it. Underneath his anger, he was needy and helpless. My mother managed him like he was her third child. She henpecked, fussed, corrected, controlled, or tried to. I have almost no happy memories of him. He worked a lot, and when he was home, he played solitaire or sat in the yard, lost in thought. I vaguely remember him trying to teach me how to ride a two-wheeler, running behind as I took the training wheels off, him letting go of the seat, me finally free, pedaling away forever. I left for college at 18 and I never looked back. I spent breaks working retail jobs off campus or backpacking across Europe. Anything to not be there. No one told me college was for meeting a husband or building a career network. I spent 4 years drinking cheap wine and dyeing my hair increasingly unnatural colors. After college, I moved to Brooklyn and chased excitement. Clubs, bands, art, experiences, parties. In my late 20s, the pressure of convention so deeply instilled finally caught up. I went to grad school and got a social work degree, and I took a job working with the severely mentally ill. The chaos of an inpatient psych unit felt normal somehow. I know now that I chased excitement because safety felt like stagnation. After my mom died, I traveled to Delaware every 6 weeks to check in on my father. I knew that's what she would have wanted. Early in his grief, he spoke lovingly of her for the first time. Story after story of their courtship, his eyes filled with tears. Like two people describing a crime scene to a sketch artist, our recollections of the events didn't quite match up, but it was clear that he had loved her and he thought that they were happy. He was diagnosed with dementia about a year after she died and ended up in a memory care unit in Delaware. I felt guilty for leaving him up north, but I couldn't bring his anger into the peaceful, loving home I had spent my whole life longing for. In his final weeks, he was filled with bitterness and rage, cursing at his attendant and making her cry, shaking his tiny fist at me when I visited, insisting every blonde nurse was my mother, crying and muttering to himself. The tenderness and vulnerability I saw in him the first year after my mom passed was swallowed by his illness. But I'm so grateful I had that year with him, the year I saw his humanity. I didn't feel like a full adult until after my parents had passed. That's when I finally had all the markings: a mortgage, a partner, a business, and my freedom. I live a beautiful life. I live in a home painted pink and gold and turquoise. Our couch is covered in velvet cushions, an homage to my childhood genie dreams. I have an amazing, funny, supportive partner who has my back, but it's still not the life my mother wanted for me. The grip of her expectations, my father's anger has finally fallen away. My training wheels are off for good, and I'm finally free to live as I choose. Our parents' marriage is the template that shapes so many of the choices that we make as adults. For most of my life, I only saw their unhappiness, the yelling, the isolation, the drinking. But now I know that they had a relationship completely separate from what I could observe as their child. There are still moments, even 5 years after her death, where I can feel the weight of her disappointment in the life that I live. But more and more, I'm so grateful for what I've carved out for myself. The rings my father pressed into my hand outside her hospice room sit in a box in a drawer. I've never worn them. They feel too heavy, like shackles to the unhappy marriage I was terrified of repeating. I don't know what I'll do with them. Maybe someday I'll have the rings redesigned into something that belongs to me, the girl who survived, defied expectations, and lived happily ever after, on her own terms. And I think in the end, my life turned out better than my mother ever hoped for me. That's it for today, my love. If this episode stirred something in you, that quiet knowing that midlife isn't a crisis, but a portal, I'd love to hear from you. DM me the word portal on Instagram, and I'll send you a voice note with a simple question to help you walk through it. And if you're feeling the pull to do this work in community, the doors are open for Empress Awakened Immersion, my 4-week online program where we move through the Maiden, the Mother, the Empress, and the Crone together. Spots are limited, so if it's calling, don't wait. Follow the calendar link in my show notes to schedule your curiosity call. Thank you for walking with me today. Keep shedding what no longer fits. Keep remembering you're not too late. You're becoming. Talk to you next week.